It's Champions Corner with Sebastian Noel and me, Coach B.
You know, Coach, I just want to point something out. It's obvious now that we have a producer because getting you to start something on time, anything other than gladiators practice, is usually impossible, but we're right on time today.
You know, and what's amazing about that is you walk through the door like 15 minutes, like, you know, you were supposed to, you know, me, don't worry about it. The great John Chavez is here to cover your tracks. He went, Coach, don't stress out about Sebastian being late. We got this covered.
Well, I think for what the compensation, 15 minutes is plenty.
You know, not everything is about compensation. You know what I'm saying? Oh. We got a great guest in the studio today. We got a great show planned, man. Let's start off with I'm in mourning today. Like I'm in mourning. Like, how in the world did 10 parts end so quickly?
Do you think maybe it was a mistake to do the 2 episodes a week? Maybe they'd start that way and then they start dragging it out one only. Then we could enjoy this.
No, the mistake that they made was it wasn't in 40 parts. Right? That was the mistake that they made because you couldn't give me 2 shows and go, we're going to give you 1. Well, I need my 2 shows.
How much Jordan worship can you have before you're like, no, this is enough? But yeah, I could have started to drag it out.
You get on my nerves with this Jordan worship, man. Like,
it's true.
You get on my nerves. The thing that I love was it was like my little fixture of winning. All right, that was my little 2 hours of the week that was going to focus strictly on winning.
Right.
Strictly on, I would get pumped up. I would look forward to looking to it going, man, we're going to talk about winning again. We're going to talk about leadership again. We're going to talk about what's Michael Jordan, how much of an asshole is he going to be in this week's show when he leads his team, he imposes his will on his team. And then you looked at, his shorts are a little low. He cussed at his teammates.
Never said any of those things.
You know, like, no, you just said how much Michael Jordan worship are we going to do?
Well, I don't think 40 episodes would have, I think they should have just dragged it out. Now, I am really looking forward to next week when America gets to realize how much of a scumbag Lance Armstrong is. So that's going to be awesome for me.
Again, I can't stand when you put the athlete down. You haven't been an athlete for 5 minutes in your life.
You can't do that.
What are you basing your knowledge on? I want to talk about The Last Dance. Johnny wants to talk about Lance Armstrong. You know what I'm saying? And so, how did you think, they ended Last Dance? How did you think it was?
I think it was great. I mean, it was...
You made a comment when you first came into studio when you were 15 minutes late for the pre-production meeting.
I think...
You made a comment, and that comment was...
first
Jerry Reinsdorf.
I'm from the Adam Deal School of Broadcasting, where 15 minutes before game time is plenty.
John, he just proved what we've been talking about. He really doesn't know what he's doing. Because we know Adam. Adam really don't know what he's doing.
No, I mean, I think that Jerry Reinsdorf kind of took a little bit of the blame finally, where this whole thing has been just shitting on Jerry Krause week after week after week. But Reinsdorf kind of proved himself to be the cheap owner that he is, right? Because that was always his rep when he was running the White Sox, right? He wouldn't spend any money. And when he said, well, we probably can't bring this team back together because Steve Kerr's going to be worth above what he's worth. Pretty much all those role guys are going to have a big payday. They're not going to be able to re-sign at a role player's salary. And so, for the first time, someone other than Jerry Krause was painted as the person that caused the breakup.
Well, it didn't end with, Jerry Krause, them reshaping his character. He was a drip, of a person. And the proof was in the pudding is when, years after the fact, Phil reached out to Jerry Reinsdorf and said, can you set up a meeting with Krause? Right. Let's get over this. Let's reestablish relations and do that. And Jerry Krause said, no, it's too late for that. That's the same Jerry Krause that said, no, it's too late for that, that in the beginning of The Last Dance, the last season, where Jerry Krause called him into the office and Reinsdorf, dealt with this in in episode 10 when he told Phil, I don't care if you go 82-0, you're out. This is it for you. So no, there was no rehabilitation of Jerry Krause.
So you're saying Jerry Krause held a grudge like MJ. He can hold a grudge just like MJ, right?
Right, but MJ won though.
Well, if you think
about
so did Jerry Krause. If you think about it, he got rings.
He won some rings, but how's it going for him since? When the Bulls let him go, how well did it go for him?
We know that.
How many teams
got the same amount of rings as the players did?
We're not talking about that. We're talking about you said it worked out for him.
No, I didn't say it worked out. I said,
how did it work out for Phil? He went 1-4 more with the Los Angeles.
I didn't say it worked out for him. I said,
where did Jerry Krause go and win more? Jerry
Reinsdorf took some accountability for breaking that team.
You didn't answer the question. Where did Jerry Krause go?
They made the playoffs.
Phil went to LA and won 4 more. So that solidified Phil. Phil wrote a book that said 11 rings.
Right. Well, we know.
Jerry write a book about 6 rings?
I'm not arguing that.
Okay. What was Jerry's body of work afterwards?
A couple of playoff appearances with Tom Thibodeau as the head coach. That's pretty much it, right?
They haven't done a thing. Unfortunately, that's the reason why in 03 they got rid of him.
And look.
And then once they got rid of him, this great architect.
So the best coach.
This great architect, once they got rid of him, because you think he got rehabilitated somewhere.
No, I didn't say that.
How many teams offered him a job?
None. No, we've gone over that. No.
So what did he win? He got the 6 rings. Did he win respect?
But what I'm saying is Jerry Reinsdorf finally took some blame at that last.
Well, if you remember in episode 1 and 2, we kind of really talked about saying that the bottom line is where does the GM get his power from? Gets the power from the owner.
Well, and to further, that whole Jerry Krause thing, when's the only other time the Bulls have won and had a good coach since Phil Jackson? It's been with Tom Thibodeau, right? Well, same thing. Tom Thibodeau couldn't get along with the front office either. Yeah. So the front office,
they didn't have. Yeah, exactly.
So
when you have this winning formula. And Jerry takes over for it, says the winning formula is because of me.
Right.
At least Jerry, he played a part in the winning formula. Yeah. At least Jerry did, But one of the things that you wanted to see, and even for me at the end, well, I really would have came back for the 7th. Scotty would have came back for the 7th. Pip would have came back.
Do you think they all would have?
I mean, we don't know. I think that.
Not our money. It's easy to talk about other people's money.
Right. It's nice. I'm going to believe in Michael because I'm a spirit worshiper or whatever you call that. Michael, and say, hey, when you go after the opportunity of a championship, no doubt, 6 out of 8 is probably never going to be repeated.
Right.
7 out of 9.
I think they could have easily ran off another 1 or 2 because the Lakers weren't as good yet.
Right.
Now
Utah was good.
Yeah, Utah.
But who won it? I forget. Who won it in '99? Do we remember? Can we find out?
Which is the short? Was that the short?
No,
the short year.
And my son looked up. Yes, it was the Spurs.
The Spurs beat the Knicks.
Strike zone season.
So they could have easily won.
Crack producer John Child.
That's right. They could have easily won the strike season, right? And that would have been good for their fatigue. Because the Lakers really didn't come on until right after that.
What about the pace? When did the Pacers fall off the pace?
Well, I mean, they always stayed at that level, right? They never brought any new pieces. They had Smiths, they had Antonio Davis.
Yeah, the Davis boys were rough, man. They were rough, the Davis boys. I hated the Davis boys. And then with Reggie, I mean, they were tough.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of resented when they said that the Pacers were their toughest opponent. I disagreed. I still say it was the 90s Knicks.
I mean, you could.
And how about the trivia question that they asked? What Hall of Fame player did Michael eliminate the most?
I don't remember.
Patrick Ewing. 4 times.
What did you think about? So I always do the live Twitter while I'm watching this, so I like to see how everyone else responds, right? What did you think when Reggie Miller said, hey, we were the better team, but they just knew how to win? I think you could make that argument. That was a pretty stacked team.
He was speaking my language. He was speaking. I'm noticing, is that a live feed? Because we got a coach that we haven't introduced yet, so we might as well. He's here with us live. And so let's introduce Coach. And he's a great young coach. Went to 2 of his games last year and was highly impressed.
The most underrated and underappreciated coach in the city, in my opinion.
And that's true. See, the one thing Sebastian knows about, loves his coaches. Like, he loves his, especially when they're face-to-face. When they're separated, you know what I'm saying? He gives a little opinion, why this, why that. But when they're face-to-face, he loves his coaches. Coach, let's introduce yourself and let's get into some coach talk.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me tonight.
And introduce yourself and.
Yeah, so my name's Rod Williams. I'm the head football coach at Cibola High School, and I've been there for 7 years, and I've been coaching 18 years, and I've been around the city for a long time. I know about a lot, and I kind of feel like kind of the career I've had is very similar to my playing days. I think I was a decent player, but I really wasn't known a whole lot, and that's okay, and I'm not in it for that. But it's kind of how we are down there at Cibola too. We're kind of quiet. You don't hear a lot all the time, but we try to do the things right, and I love being there, and it's a great community.
Let's start out from the beginning, Coach. Albuquerque born and bred, or did you come here from somewhere else?
You know what? I was raised here. I was born in Dallas, Texas. My mother moved us out here when we were young. She had actually worked with another lady that said, hey, she was trying to get away from a relationship and said, I know a place in New Mexico. You go, it's called Albuquerque. You go out there, it's something you might want to do. And she literally just packed up, and I don't remember the year, but an old Dodge Dart, and put some trash bags in there with their 2 boys and drove out here. And
I think that's how the Karate Kid ended up out in California, too. Right? Didn't have to say.
Is that how you found your way to Albuquerque?
Right? Mom packed the trunk up. We're going out to, And so how old were you, Coach?
I was only one. So my brother was 5, and we lived in a little place off of like 4th and Manal. It was a duplex. I think it's like a discount tire now or something like that. But she just kind of started a whole new life for us, brought us out here, and so I did all my schooling out here and finished up at Del Norte High School, and then
Go Knights.
Go Knights.
2 Del Norte alum here. Go figure.
Do it the right way, the night way.
The right way, the night way. I haven't heard that in a while.
So and then I went off to New Mexico Highlands and played under Edward Filato and Carl Farrell. We had some great seasons then and won an RMAC championship, and just love the game. The game's been a huge part of my life.
When did you decide you would start coaching?
I knew in high school, my senior year, I had a really good teacher, bless his heart, the late Dr. Roberts. Everybody loved him. He was a social studies teacher, and he just influenced me so much as a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher, and I said, well, I want to coach too, so those two go hand in hand. So I knew when I got to college already what I wanted to do and prepare for, and at one point I thought I was going to be a radiologist or a radiology technician, but once I was in his class, I knew that's where I was going, and that's what I wanted to do. So I actually went back to Del Norte once I finished college and did my student teaching there, and coached my first year there.
Coached at the old alma mater, huh?
Yeah.
And so
what year was that?
Oh man, that was 2000, I believe. That was 2000.
So that would have been Eberhardt, Shannon Kincaid, some of those guys were around?
No, those guys had just left. And actually, Kincaid actually was a freshman when I was a senior, so that kind of ages me a little bit. But it's funny story about him. He came up as a freshman when we were all seniors because he's a rare talent. But I had known him since he was younger, and he came out and got to practice with us on varsity, and he was so fast that he'd get the ball and run straight out to the side and run sweep every time, no matter what it was. It could have been a trap up the middle or whatever it might have been, but he did not want to get in the middle with the seniors, and he'd run on the outside, and just so athletic he could still beat us to the end zone and make make hay doing stuff that way.
And so you go out to Highland, you play 4 years out there, and what position did you play?
When I was at New Mexico Highlands, I played cornerback. So I started off as a receiver, but you know what they say, cornerbacks end up being guys that just can't catch.
Well,
so
we didn't want to
I
say
couldn't
that.
catch well enough.
We weren't
man.
going to say that.
So
See what I'm saying? You see what
We
I'm
weren't going to say
As soon as you
that.
said that, that's what he was thinking. He was thinking, there's a reason why he's on the edge.
So
There's
I'm
a
using
reason why
that
he's
on the air
a
next year on Profi Networks. I'm using it.
man, I wanted to be a receiver, and I was doing well the first 2 days there, and and I was behind a guy named Jamar Naylor, who was an All-American, and I was just under his wing. He was teaching me a lot of stuff, but I just didn't catch as well as him. He was a natural. In fact, his son, I want to say he's currently at ASU, Speedy Naylor, and they're just a phenomenal family, great athletes. But anyways, I was behind him, and a coach approached me and said, "Hey, we really could use some help on the defensive side of the ball, and we want to move you over to safety." And I took that hard, man. I was like, I don't know if I want to stay, and basically he was telling me you can't catch in a nice way. And so I went over there and I struggled at safety, and then it was kind of like I could tell the coach didn't know what to do with me, and so you know what, we're going to go ahead and slide you to corner. That way, you might be one of those guys that just kind of focus on one guy a little bit more and not have to worry about angles and the big picture. So I say, I took it hard again, like, man, I'm just not good enough. And then I got there and I found my niche, because I could just focus on one guy. And what we did, it was send the house every time, lock your corners up, and
it's a good thing because the next question would have been, do you know how to kick, Roderick?
I was headed that way. I found my niche, being able to just go man to man all the time, and I was one of those kids that I wasn't the most athletic. I was pretty athletic, but not compared to some guys. I wasn't the most athletic corner, but I focused on form and fundamentals, to a T. And I'm still that way. I kind of coach as a technician. I want to know every little thing, what your foot placement, and I joke and I say sometimes, which way is your pinky supposed to go, your pinky toe when you're doing this and that. But that's how I played, and that's how I was able to get on the field, was just being a technician.
Who was your high school coach?
Dave Williams.
Dave Williams.
The great Dave Williams, yeah.
Okay, so there's a base there. College coach. Who was your position of coach? You had mentioned, what was his name?
Carl Farrell was the gentleman I played for, who was well known. He came from the LA area and did some good things at some of the LA Valley City and Chafee. And, I played with a lot of those guys from California. And he was well known, and when he came in, he brought a lot of those guys down with him, and so I kind of learned about the college football scene beyond New Mexico. And but my position coach, we had a few during the time, but the one that stood out the most for me was Darryl Hill, and he made a big difference in our lives, and he's one of the ones that taught me, and I really keep to some of his philosophy. He really talked to us about things beyond football. After practice, he talked to us about stock market. He talked to us about marriage, family, and things that, at that age you don't really think about. You just know football, and that's pretty much all you do, and you go to school and your classes. But he really left a mark on me because he spent so much time talking to us about life. So he was a relationship builder. And
so he was able to teach you trust. One of the things that I talk about with my athletes all the time, the first thing we go over when camp starts is that, okay, we've got to establish a trust here. You got to trust me that I can help you, and I got to trust you that you're going to let me. And that's so important. So especially when you get a coach that is interested in it, or you perceive that they're interested in who you are. You'd be amazed. I remember one time, I've told this story in the past, Bill Snyder, I've been blessed to have such great coaches, such great teachers in my life. It still led me to Albuquerque coaching indoor football, but I asked Bill Snyder, talking to Bill about my culture, our curriculum, which, my culture was always clinical. I took a very clinical approach to what we did, which is what Coach Snyder did. Coach Snyder asked me a question one day, and he said, "Hey, Coach, I want to ask you," he said, when you see your players coming down a hallway, or you see your players coming to the field house, or you see your players, who says hello first? And I said, "My players do, Coach." And he said, "You're making an enormous mistake. When it comes to trust building," he said, "you don't know what it means to that player to have the coach say hello to him first. Coach knows my name. Coach said hello to me. Coach said," and he becomes indebted a little bit just with this simple thing of saying hello. At the time I was a young coach thinking they owe me respect. They're gonna acknowledge me as I come down the hallway, or make my way through the locker room, or
kiss the ring.
And that was an important lesson that I learned to go. And ever since then, I say hello to my players instead of doing a trust building. And so you trusted Coach. And how far did that trust that you had for Coach and his love of you, how far did that carry you? Was that part of the reasons why you wanted to go into coaching?
I mean, absolutely. As you were talking, I was thinking, I had to coach that first year when they moved me over there, and I just felt like, man, this dude hates me, and I had a real good buddy. He's a state policeman now. He's been about to retire, but he told me, just hang in there, man. Like he was on me the same way when I first started and I came over, and just keep it cool, man. Hang in there. And then, so we kind of got through it the first year, and then that next year is when Coach Hill came in, and we had him for the next 2 years, and he taught us so much, from the game to some of the other things, that when he actually left, he had to go. Some things came up and he had to go back to California. When he left, it was like all we did was do everything he ever taught us. It's like we now ran the position. There was a coach there, but no, he had such a mark on us that we knew what we were doing. We're going to listen to you, but he was always on our mind, and like I said, it stuck with me, the things he would talk about, and so I definitely wanted to get into football even more at that point, and I wanted to help change young men's lives, because I've had several coaches that have done that for me. I wasn't on the right track, definitely in my younger years, middle school, and then going into high school, and it basically was a couple of people that told me, you need to wake up, that got me on the right track.
So you're saying, Coach, that Del Norte had some of those unsavory characters?
I was one of them. I can't say Sebastian was, but I definitely was.
And so, at what point you leave Highlands, you go back to your alma mater? Was it during that time, or was it before, when you said, I want to shape young men's lives? I want to get into this profession called coaching. Yeah,
it was before that. I mean, honestly, I always tell this story, and I tell it to my players. I'll tell it to anybody that wants to listen. I was a kid that, we started working really young. That's what Mom had us do. I started down here, right down the street at Octopus Car Wash, which is now Mister, but you were 14, and I was pulling cars around, and then I went straight after that. For 3 months, I went to work at IHOP, and worked graveyards there when it wasn't even legal, but hey, back then, you did those things, and my brother was the same way, but, so I knew working, that's one thing she instilled in us. So when I went out my freshman year, I didn't have a physical or something like that, and basically at the meeting they had, they said, if you don't have a physical, you can't play. So for me, I was just, well, I guess I'm done. I'm not going to be a football player, and I happened to see, I was at the mall, Coronado Mall up here, and I happened to see Dave Williams, and I wanted to hide. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, there's that coach from Del Norte. And he said, I need to play. You need to get out there. And then Coach Ed Lucero tells a story how he saw me walk out and he says, man, we might have lost a good one there. And that always stuck with me. And so I ended up playing, and then after my freshman year, I thought, that was fun. I enjoyed it. I actually was halfway decent at it, but I wanted to just work. I just wanted to work, so I said I was going to work, and it was the head coach of La Cueva, Brennan Back. His dad saw me in church one time, and I told him that he asked me about football, and I said, I don't think I'm going to play anymore. I just want to work. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, son, you have the rest of your life to work. You need to go out and play football. And that changed my life. That's when I started knowing, like, okay, and I was doing wrong things, and it just stuck with me, and I knew I needed to change my ways. And I stayed with football, and went through college, and was able to get a degree, and that just, I knew from the people that influenced me, along with heavily Dave Williams, those people that influenced me made me really want to work with kids.
Did you coach either of his sons, Danny or Ben? Because Danny was right around your time too, right? And didn't he play?
I want to say Ben was there when I first started. Ben
graduated with me in 2002.
Yeah.
And Danny would have been before that when you were there, right?
Darren, I believe. I played with Darren. Hopefully I have this right. I hope they'll forgive me if I have it wrong. But Danny I didn't coach, but I did coach Ben. I was one of the coaches on the staff when Ben was there. And they're just a great family. I mean, they've done a lot of things, and I respect them very much. But I'll never forget what he told me. And then I see him now. We play La Cueva every year, and Mr. Back is always down there, and so I get to talk to him for a minute. But
this guy, Coach, has not missed. Mr. Back has not missed a game, and probably, I don't know what.
That was awesome.
Because between all his sons, they've either been playing or coaching probably for the past 30 years. So
yeah.
he has never missed a baseball game because his kids all played multiple sports. And now they go, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, he's all over, and I still see Mom and periodically, but just a great family. And so just for me, it shows like you talked about trust. You never know, when you really do take a genuine interest in kids or a kid. And I even think that with my own son. They wake up, and I have a 13-year-old now, and I say hi to him first, like you said, because he won't say it sometimes. He'll just wake up and go off and do his thing. I'm like, hey, how you doing, Braylon? I want him to know, like, hey, Dad's here. How are you doing? and I think that, that might matter at some point. And so trust is a big thing, and we talk about that. And it goes right along with the word accountability, and that's kind of what we're really focusing on constantly.
So would Coach Williams and Coach from Highland, are they involved, or their philosophies involved in the culture of Coach Williams and the culture of what you've established at Cibola?
I mean, that's a good question, and it's funny because yes and no. Dave Williams had or Coach Williams had such a, sorry, Coach, I'm still afraid of him to this day. He had such an effect on me, and I don't know that he knows how much of an effect he had. And the word I always use, the phrase in which he taught us back then was first class. He always said, do everything first class, be first class, we're going to be first class. He'd say, don't go across the street, which was MP's game room and like Walgreens and these different places across from Delaware. Don't go over there to Jersey and go steal from the store or do something stupid. Everything you do has always got to be first class, and I still use that to this day. When I came into Cibola, and those kids would say it all the time, Coach, we got to be first class, we got to be first class. And we had a basketball tournament one time at Cibola, and I got a little bit out of character, just get competitive, and it came down to the last shot.
I want to hear more about those stories, really.
and I'm playing against other coaches, and it's like I got to show you what I can do. I'm a competitive dude. You are too. And came down to the very last shot. I make a 3-pointer to win it, and they said it was after the buzzer, and so I kind of got a little out of character.
We need names. That's what we need.
I'll tell you,
Murphy, wasn't it?
The coach that we were playing against was a UNM athlete. He's an awesome coach and awesome athlete, and that was Eric Jack. I mean, he's a ball player, and but everybody knows, like, wow, I haven't seen Coach Williams like that. And I'm walking down the hall afterwards, right? It was at lunch, and one of my kids comes up behind me, and he says, "Hey, Coach, I thought you were first class." Oh, and it was just a stab in the heart, like. So I knew they were listening to what I was preaching, and I knew at all times I got to be first class. These guys watch what we're doing.
Well, you're right, Coach, but don't be too hard on yourself either, because to be at the height of what you need to do, you're trying to build a program out there that's going to compete with the La Cuevas and the Rio Ranchos and the other good schools, the Volcano Vistas and stuff. And to be able to do that, you've got to have a competitive edge about yourself. And sometimes, when you have that competitive edge, it's tough to control it sometimes. So don't be too hard about yourself, because that's what made you.
Like MJ said, right? Leadership and winning.
Winning comes with a price.
Oh, yeah.
Leadership comes with a price. He says that, I think, episode 8. I think he said that. And so don't be too hard on yourself, because one of the things that a coach definitely has to do when it comes to establishing his culture is he's got to impose his will on his team. Mm-hmm. I do that now with my son. I have a son who's a sophomore. Just finished his sophomore year, I think today was their last day, right?
Friday.
Is it Friday their last day? That he's going to be a junior. And, one of the things that we're doing during this COVID for 2 months, we're 3-on, 1-off, him and I. We're on the field 3 days in a row. He gets a day off, back on the field 3 days in a row. And I kick his ass. I kick his ass to the point if I cared what people thought of me, I would say, hey, we got to go inside somewhere where, no one's going to pass judgment, because I know people have said the park we work out at is, man, that father's crazy, But what I'm doing is the one last aspect of my son, and you'll see him walk in here, and I know he played against you last year. He was a young kid that played against you. He'll walk in here and you'll go, holy Christmas, he's twice the size he was the last time I saw him. And, but he needs that motor. He needs that intensity. You're going to laugh, Sebastian. I had him watching film this weekend in Oklahoma. of Randy White. You know, because that's his style of play, Randy White. And so we watched an hour of Randy White, and this is how I want you to, you know, the intensity. And we were really concentrating on the burst that every time Randy White engaged and then disengaged, the burst that he had was not amazingly fast, but intense. You know, his burst was intense. And so there are times I have to be an asshole with him. You know, there are times I can't just put my arm around them.
I don't know how you do it, Coach. It's so out of your character normally. It must really be a stretch. I can hardly imagine it.
And so I'm trying to impose my will on him. And so that's what we do when we have those outbursts. You know, I tell everybody when he believes it. We're thespians. You and I are thespians. And there are times we have to turn up the heat, even though it's just an act. Maybe we don't want to, but we have to. I would tell maybe a coach sometimes as we're taking the field for practice, hey man, I'll be a little hard on you today, but it's for a reason. You know, just go with it, you know. And so don't be too hard on yourself with that story about going, hey coach, you want to be first class. I just said to that kid, get away from me. Get away from me, you know. So it's great that it was a learning point for you. But sometimes I tell everybody, when you're in a position of leadership, you got to be a prick sometimes. You know, you got to be a prick sometimes. You can't worry about what people think. Who's going to say, man, it's not first class. No, you know what I'm saying?
No, I kind of just told him at the time, hey, it was heated. You know, it's a heated game.
I said, get away from me, you little snot. That's the reason why I can't coach high school. You know, you were coming on the show, and I just got back from Oklahoma this morning. I live half the year. My goal is to live half the year. I have a ranch in Oklahoma, me and my wife, and I'm here most of the time because of my son now. But I went looking for something, and it was in my storage, and I brought it back because I have a little bit of a history with Albuquerque and Cibola football that I never realized at the time, you know. My last high school game that I was involved in, I got picked to coach in the 2004 U.S. Army All-American Bowl game down in San Antonio, and it was at a time where it was the only high school all-star game, and one of my kids, my positional players, was Alan Branch. And so got to know Alan that week. You know, I coached the D-line that week with Big Alan and some other amazing, you know, players down there. And going through my stuff this week.
Hold on one second. Stop on that, because it gave us that same broadcast here. Let's stop it, and then stop recording.
We're still recording. So you want to stop the broadcast and go live?
And go live again.
We'll be right back.
Oh, we're back online.
Are we back?
Yeah, we are back.
Did you see that we're back?
Did we get sponsors? Are we doing commercials? Are we paying the guests? What the hell's going on here? Coach, so was that your first interview for a head job? Was that Cibola?
No, it wasn't. I actually had interviewed for the Albuquerque High job, and I don't remember the year it was, but Gary Ness was the one chosen for that, and so no, it wasn't. And at that time, I was probably too young to take it anyways, and but I thought I was ready.
So you're out of school. You're coaching at your alma mater. What are you coaching? Your first year of coaching.
Yeah, my first year, I was coaching the defense side of the ball for the freshman football team, and I loved it. It was a blast.
Right.
I still talk to some of those kids and see them today every once in a while, you know, maybe through Facebook or something like that. But it was a fun time.
And how long were you there at the alma mater?
I was there, I want to say just 1 year.
1 year, okay.
Yeah, 1 year.
Second football.
They dropped the ball there, didn't they? You know, Ron Warren probably, that's his best word.
Hey, Ron was one of my coaches my senior year, and we definitely had some good times.
Yeah,
some
Ron did
challenging
a great
times.
job. That's why every good coach that ever went to Del Norte is somewhere else now, thanks to Ron Warren.
Wow. That's what you love about Sebastian. He really, you guys are too young. I compare Sebastian to an announcer from back in
Howard
Cosell.
There's so bigger asshole than Ron Warren. But anywho.
So your second year in coaching is where?
Then I went over to Albuquerque High and worked under Kenny Barreras, who is now the head of APS Athletics, and worked with him. I don't want to say it was 1 or 2 years before he left to take that job, but I was still there. I stayed under Gary Nass and worked with John Chavez and Al Guadagnoli, some of those guys, for 5 years.
Did you dare start thinking in any of those 5 years that, hey man, I wonder what it would be like to sit in a big chair?
I did. I did think about that. There was a lot I was learning. One of the guys, it was another assistant, his name was Jesus Mays, and he was a guy that was just really observant and gave me a lot of good input just when we'd have our own conversations, and he would always push me like, man, you got to be a head coach. He'd just tell me, you're going to be a head coach, and he'd tell me, and I kind of thought, really? Yeah, I don't know. But then that seed was in my mind, and so it was there, for a while. My whole thing was, can I lead men? I thought I could lead players, and I had great rapport with my players. Can I lead men? It was always my big thing.
Coach, did you share this on your Facebook page?
I haven't.
Yeah, share it on your Facebook page. Do that right now. So this way, your friends, your family, your players, everybody could see you live and do that. So we're going. You put 4 years in at Albuquerque High. And now all of a sudden, the big seat starts calling you a little bit, and Sebastian asked a question. Did you start thinking? One of the things that I've always told my assistants, whether it have been high school level, college level, pro level, is I would always make them take head coaching interviews. And I would say, you're going to practice the interview, because even if you don't want the job, you don't have to take it. They might not offer it to you anyway, but you at least prepare and practice for the interview. Who was the first interview? Okay, and where were you? Were you an assistant at Albuquerque when you took your first interview? And what were the nerves going in on that first interview?
That's a good question. I was at Albuquerque High. Gary Ness had...
we both applied for that job together.
Yeah.
Both of us got passed over.
It was funny because it's like all the guys that were there, there was 3 of us that put in for it, and then another guy that was there before with Kenny Barreras as well. If you remember Tyhee Jones, he was a guy, and I worked with him.
Another guy that coached Del Norte.
Yeah.
He got the head job at Del Norte.
That's it.
Right after Ed, right?
That's it, yeah.
After Ed left him.
So, it was so I was still there, and I put in for that, and for me, I was just inexperienced. I don't know that I was so much nervous. I just remember really probably overdressing. I had a suit on, and
I remember.
I saw other guys as I walked by. I'm like, oh, well, they're not very dressed up.
I look like a hobo.
But I was thorough. And sometimes I learned at a young age from a preacher. Sometimes people they kind of act a little higher than they are, not necessarily arrogant, but I probably was talking about things I didn't really know. I knew what to say, and a lot of things that I thought I knew of it, but I didn't experience it. And I often tell kids and stuff now, football players, when you go and you do an interview, you got to give examples of your experience. You can't just say you've done this, that, and the other, because I'm the prime example of, the person that shouldn't have done that. And I was doing that, acting like I knew this and that, but I really hadn't. I didn't have that experience. So that was the big thing I took from that, is that you need to have something to support what you're really saying.
And for young coaches out there, how do you do that? In your opinion, a guy that went through the process and got grinded up a little bit like the rest of us did when we originally went through the process. What do you tell them now? How do you For me, I was surrounded by great coaches. I worked for 7 different phenomenal head coaches before I got my first head coaching job, and they really took an interest in me. They would make me practice interviews. Like, we would practice the interviews and stuff like that. You went through it by yourself. So what would you say to young coaches out there now, assistant coaches? Because we get a lot of coaches come on our show. And so what would you say to those young coaches who are thinking about, hey man, the big seat, what would you say to them to prepare them for their first interview?
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. I'm that guy that had to experience a lot of things on my own, and I would never recommend that to anybody. I did a lot of figuring out on my own, and I was with Kenny Barreras, and he was such a good influence on me, but he left because he got promoted, and so I didn't get some of that knowledge that I needed there. And then under Gary, that's just not something we did. But I don't think I expressed to him that I wanted to be a head coach, and I more so learned just from watching all aspects of the program at that point. And then I had worked under with Chad Wallen at Volcano Vista, and it's not something we directly studied, but he did say, hey, if you ever want to come in and come to a booster meeting and just kind of see what goes on there, or just certain things that go on with the program, you don't know. As an assistant, you're really blind to a lot of what the head coach does, and so it was something. I guess if I was going to give some advice, it'd be talk to your head coach and let him know first and foremost that you want to be a head coach, and then can you prepare me to do that? I really want you to mentor me. Can you prepare me, whether it be getting ready for an interview, whether it be going to a booster club meeting, whether it be some of the looking at a year-round calendar. What do you do during this time? How to study film, and prepare me for questions that if I was going to go into an interview, I could actually have some evidence to support what I'm saying, rather than just, like I said, I was talking higher than I was. I was talking up, and I really wasn't that experienced. I didn't have that knowledge. So that would be the biggest thing. Try to ask your coach to help you get your feet wet. Get involved and just sit there and be on the fly on the wall, listening to everything you can and soaking it up.
So you go to this interview. You end up back at Albuquerque, or did you take a job somewhere else?
Yeah. So what happened there is the guy that came on, I believe, was Joe Anaya. Am I right? Yeah. So Joe Anaya came on, good guy, great coach, done good things out in Moriarty. And he asked me to stay on with him, but
me too.
Yeah, I think he wanted me to be the DC. Yeah, he really.
Single week team.
He was like, you gotta stay. He's talking to me, and I just.
Single wing with the spinner series.
What had happened? The principal at that time had said, you're still a little bit young. If you'll stay in there, hang in there, you'll be the next coach. You'll be a head coach. And I just felt like I told myself in my mind, like, there's a good chance she may not even be here at that point. And I was right. She ended up leaving like that next year. And so what I did is this is kind of a funny story. I went down, this is when Cibola was the job in the state. It had like 3,300 kids at the school. Volcano Vista wasn't open yet. And everybody was applying for that job. All the big names in the state had applied for it. And so what I did is I went down there when Judge Chavez got the job, and I said, hey, here's who I am, and I just want to know if you need an assistant coach. I'd like to coach. And I had moved to that side of town in Ventana Ranch, and so he kind of I got a lot of respect for him. He's done great things, and I actually followed up after him. I came in after he was at Cibola, but anyways, at that time, he kind of just blew me off a little bit. I don't think he knew who I was, and just kind of, we might have a freshman assistant job somewhere, and he never got back to me. And so that kind of stuck with me, and I ended up teaching over there at Cibola. I got a position because that's one of the only spots where there was a history job available, and so I got on there. But like I said, he didn't really get back to me about coaching. So I had a buddy who I played college ball with at New Mexico Highlands, Paul Lopez. His brother at the time was the coach at Rio Rancho, Phil Lopez. So he's like, hey man, you got to come coach with us. And I was kind of like, well, I don't think I'm going to coach anymore, man. I'm just going to take it off and go get my master's degree. And he said, well, I talked to my brother, and he said, you got to keep coaching. You get out of the game, it's going to be hard to come back in. And he says he's looking for somebody that's going to be
a saying with that, coach. The saying is, when you're out of it, it's like you were never in it. And when you get back in it, it was like you were never out of it.
Okay, yeah. So he was right at the time, and so I took him up on it. Ended up coaching a year at Rio Rancho, and it was fun. Learned a lot. And then after that, again, I was at Cibola teaching and coaching at Rio Rancho, so I was like the top secret guy out in portable 59, the farthest portable in the whole
And don't think that Judge didn't have something to do with that shit. I know Judge a little bit. He knew, but that's
So, I mean, I'm way out there. Nobody even knows that I'm a history teacher. Nobody knows that I coach football at Rio Rancho. This is like top secret, and I never told anybody. Well, the whole deal was we want to smash Cibola. And at that time, they were winning everything. Every week on the announcements, we're 8-0, freshmen are 5-0, JV is 6-0. Everybody was undefeated, and so we couldn't wait to play them when we were at Rio Rancho. And we ended up playing that year, and we just smashed them, just hammered them, and it was packed. I mean, there's RVs around it. There was a lot of people. Well,
That's when the cat got out of the bag going,
almost.
Mr. Williams.
Almost, yeah. So I went to school that next, it's Friday night game. I went to school that next weekend. One of my students, it was a girl, I don't remember who it was or anything, but she's like, do you coach for Rio Rancho? Did I see you there? I'm like, no.
This is clearly pre-Program Networks, because this secret would have never been able to.
Yeah, there's no way I would have been able to do it then. But I was like, no, it wasn't me. No, I don't coach. But she could have swore it was Mr. Williams over there coaching with Rio Rancho, and sure enough, it was me. And nobody ever knew. Now the cat's out of the bag. Nobody ever has asked me about it or even really known. But it's just the way it was. I wasn't doing anything that I shouldn't have been, like spying on Cibola or anything. I stayed out in portable 59. Again, that was the farthest one. I was pretty much all the way up McMahon Boulevard under the houses. And
Smith's. He was closer to Rio Rancho than he was.
yeah, man, I was right up there by Smith's, and it literally took me 10 minutes just to walk in the building and get back out there just to get a drink. And
The way Judge wanted it.
3,300 kids, man, and but then after that, they had talked about, hey, we're going to open this new school, Volcano Vista, and some of the people that were going had contacted me and let the principal know, like, hey, let's get this guy over there. He's a good teacher, and so I said, hey, maybe it's an opportunity to just go over there as a teacher and just leave it at that, because Phil had left Rio Rancho, and so I stopped coaching again, and then when I talked to the principal, she said, in order for you to be able to teach here and help open this school, you need to coach. So okay, I guess I'll do that. But then I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to coach. Again, I didn't want to go to another school. But she was still going to let me teach there. And I'm out with my buddy. At this time, he had a business with some tires and stuff, and we're working, and I get a call because the head coach, who was Chad Wallen, he didn't even know who I was, and we laugh about this still sometimes, but he didn't even know who I was. But I didn't know if I was on his staff or I wasn't, because the principal said I had to, but we hadn't really agreed to anything. And
So by the way, I'm your coach.
yeah. So we show up at this orientation, and I'm looking at him, and he's kind of been looking at me, and it was kind of awkward. And then I talked to him like, I don't know if I'm on your staff or what's going on, and he kind of said, well, right now I don't know if we have any positions available. Well, it turns out he had a guy leave that went back to he had gone to Mexico or something to coach, and so he called me out when I was working with my buddy, and he's like, hey man, would you be willing to coach? And so I said sure. So we came on, and the rest is history. I was there for 6 years, and then I moved over to Cibola.
Now, when you took the Cibola job, obviously you took the Cibola job at a time where the place is just hemorrhaging kids, right?
Yeah.
They're leaving to go to Volcano, they're leaving to go to Rio, they're leaving to go to Cleveland. Did you realize how much of a challenge that would be and just how bad the hemorrhage was at that point?
No. In short, absolutely not. I'm going to be honest, it's still a constant battle.
Right.
It's a great community, and I love the community. Everything's around there. The people are good. I mean, the environment, the houses, the school is always academically rated high, and it's a great community. But we're the old men in the district.
Right.
We're the older school, and you've got...
It's not the pride of the West anymore, right? It's not the 3,500 kids at first,
No,
right?
absolutely right. We still want it to be.
Yeah, of course,
we still talk about that. It's still written around the school, but anytime there's a new school that opens up, and I even consider Rio Rancho fairly new, 97. Right. I mean, it's a beautiful school, and they've got facilities and their own stadiums, and Cleveland, and then you got Volcano Vista, who's a new school, and the the draw to people is not as high as some of those schools, but we run it's a great school, it's a great program, and I respect all the schools around us. They do good things as well. But to answer your question, no, that's been something I didn't realize so much until I got there. Being at Volcano Vista, and like I said earlier, as an assistant, you don't always notice some of these things. And then at that time too, those schools are really new. So Cleveland, in 2013 I started, and Cleveland's a few years old, and Volcano as well, and then of course 97 for Rancho. But it's something where I feel like, especially since Yaffle kind of opened it up to where you can play wherever.
That was going to be my next question. So how do you fight that every year to make sure your lower level teams are full, your Yaffle, Volcano's got like 3 or 4 Yaffle teams at every age group, so that's got to be a constant struggle every year, right?
It's such a battle. Before they did that, Cibola used to have a really strong feeder program. Everybody was running around with the Cougar on their helmet, and that's dwindled so much. And it's not because of what we've done since we've been there. We were able to, I think, turn the program around and do some good things. But it's just been more so because kids have the choice to go where they want, and for whatever reason, Yaffle makes the decision on who's going to play where and what coaches will coach, and so other schools' feeder programs have really thrived, and ours has taken a step back, and we get a lot of kids that play, with another school's logo on their helmet and stuff, and that always makes me feel like, well, man, does that kid feel like they should be a part of that, and we lose some, which I know we do, because they played all their youth years or their years in Yaffle for that school. And so it's hard. At this point, I don't have a true strategy with the feeders to take care of it, but all we can do is run a first-class program, and anytime we can get out there and promote Cibola, we're going to do it.
Now, one of the things, Coach, that I would do back in my younger days, and I was taught this when we were always in a rebuilding mode, there are different types of coaches out there. There are builders, there are polishers, there are maintainers, just like with a coach, some coaches are great preparation coaches, some coaches are good practice coaches, some coaches are good in-game coaches. Very rarely you get one that's good at all of them, And so what we would do is we took over a program back in 94 that hadn't had a winning season in 18 years. We took this program over, and it was downtrodden. Mediocrity had set in. When mediocrity sets in, it sets in deep. I mean, the secretaries of the athletic department, are dealing with the mediocrity of what we did. And so, we started cleaning house. We developed our culture. We started cleaning house knowing in a rebuilding situation, year 2 is always really the first year of rebuilding. Year 1, you're instilling your culture and getting rid of the young athletes who don't believe in the culture or don't fit in the culture. And so by year 4, with year 1 we went 2-7, which is 19 years in a row. First year of rebuilding was year 2, which was 20 years in a row now of losing. But we saw the light at the end of the tunnel in that second 2-7. Year 3, we make the tournament for the first time. Lose to the eventual champion, David Tyree, the great New York Giant who caught the football off his head against the Patriots. Always. David Tyree lit us up that day. Montclair went on to win the state championship. Year 4, we go to the state championship for the first time. Year 5, we're the number 1 ranked team in the tri-state area. Our philosophy was, let's give them a reason to come here. Let's run the best strength and conditioning program. We started selling to our young men, you come here, we'll get you to the post-secondary level. So we really push dreams on our kids. What schools do you want to go to? This and that. We would really, get them dreaming. And so once they start believing in the dream, we did everything first class. Even though we didn't have first class stuff, we acted like we had first class stuff. and we had the best trainers, and we tried to do the best that we can. And I'm telling you, by our 5th year, every school that was, in the Big Ten was coming to our, every school in the Big East, every school, we were putting out kids, on a college level, left and right. It was crazy, and so I like what you're doing with your program over there, man. Your kids play with a passion. Your kids play with pride. Your kids play, sell the dream, man. You might be doing that because good things are going to happen to your program. Your quarterback was on here, 2 weeks ago, and I was so impressed with that kid that I literally went home and told my son, I talked to a freshman today that I don't know if you could talk like him. He was so poised. He was so, right on with what he wanted and what he saw and how, what he did. And so great things are going to happen at Cibola over the next 3 years. Capture all of it, man. Capture all of it. What we used to do that, our first year there, we would go to every youth park that was in our jurisdiction and openly recruited kids to go to the youth programs. We got with our youth coaches and made sure that our youth coaches were running our stuff. And so every Friday it would be our pregame practice. All the coaches would have to go to their youth programs and help them install the offensive and defensive philosophy. Because we wanted our feeder systems running our program. We didn't want to have to go and find a quarterback. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like when they showed up as freshmen or, 8th graders, we wanted to know who they were coming in and stuff. It was crazy. We started going to local hospital. Kids that were in our district, they would let us know the kids that were in our district, and we'd send them a card with a little football to a future Plainfield partner. To be able to do that and get the culture across, and then once it hit, we were unstoppable. I tell the story when we would go to clinics our first year, we'd make our coaches wear everything that our team wore. We wanted people to
Ron does always have the best gear, though.
We would make our coaches. We would go to the clinics and make our coaches wear it, and coaches would laugh. That program, look at them, that program. By the 5th year, they got out of our way. By the 5th year, when they would say, oh shit, here come the Plainfield staff, they got out of our way because they knew that we were a sleeping giant that had awoken and stuff like that. And so Cibola is really now at that point. They're a sleeping giant that's ready to awaken, and you got that trigger kid, man, that is so important. I'm really looking forward to it. I told Aiden that, the nights that my son's not playing, I'm going to go check Cibola out because I want to see this kid lead this team. I love when teams break through. I love it when they're, you see it in their infancy stages and you can see the future is bright. So what do you expect from, you're at Cibola, you're grinding it out, you're in a tough conference, what do you expect from your unit coming up this year?
Yeah, just listening to you there, it's amazing because I really feel that's where our kids are. We went through a couple of really difficult years, and when you're struggling in those years, the culture can get bad. And that's what happened to us. In the last 2 years, it's been us climbing out of that. And you can just see the kids buying in. 2 seasons ago, that started having leaders that were leading the weight room, and it wasn't just coaches constantly preaching everything. And then this year it carried over, and more guys stepped up and were leaders. And then before the quarantine, this is probably the best off season we had to that point. The guys are, just simple little things like I'm dealing with something real quick in the office for the athletic director or something. We got guys going in the weight room, getting everybody set up, stretched. They're on fire. We're going. The energy was great. It's just, you can see that. I feel that we're taking that next step. And but the expectations are high. We're always going to play a tough schedule. That's what we do.
Well, that's why I said underrated and underappreciated at the top, because in that district, when Rod struggled, it was a winless district. when you struggle in another district, maybe you can finish 500. But in that district, when you struggle, the record shows it, right?
There's no doubt.
Who's in the district, Coach?
So, it's funny because every time anybody interviews us, it's always your district. But of course you got Cleveland.
You're in Cleveland.
And Rio Rancho. And Volcano Vista.
Yeah. So the thing is with that
is the best. You got to beat the best.
You do, and it's difficult because it's a balance. We play a lot of tough teams out of district as well. So a lot of years when you look at the Max Preps rankings,
you guys play a brutal schedule.
You'll see Cibola's. I mean, I did a 10-year analysis of it in 7-year, and I just wanted to see we have the highest rated schedule every time. So if you can compete and do well in those, then it helps you. But there's no reason to play a tough schedule if you're not competing. I mean, it can get ugly like it did 3 years ago for us, and we had to really get back to, are we disciplined? What are we doing in this program? And so a lot of things, have had to change. So anyways, yeah, we're always going to play a tough district. But, we expect to compete with those guys. We started off that way, and we were competing and had some great years, and then we kind of hit a slump, and we're trying to come back out of that. And, the gold standard is got to be Cleveland.
Now, that schedule had to help you. I remember 2 years ago, I just, I'm going to point out, I was the only guy at ProView Networks that picked the Cibola Cougars to win in the first round, because there was no bigger Marcus Steele fan. You've been pretty blessed at that position. I thought he was excellent.
Yeah.
So, they won the 2 years ago, and I thought the schedule really helped you guys, because, you look good. You the first round, I called that, Coach, all the way. Just me.
Yeah.
Not Adam.
As you can tell,
you upset Cleveland. Not Scott Galletti.
Can you tell just during this interview, Sebastian really needs those pats on the back. So what would make his night, Coach, if you say, Sebastian, I appreciate you.
Sebastian, man, we appreciate you picking us, and we had no doubt in our mind either.
And I called that game, so.
But yeah, no, it was a fun game. But you're right. We've been blessed at that position. Since I have been there, we've had some good ones, and we keep, we pass the torch every year. It's just we've been blessed at that position. That's helped us out a lot, and I really like where we are now with that position too.
I even remember mentioning that on the broadcast with Steele. I said, you know what? If this QB's playing for La Cueva or somewhere else, everyone in the city's talking about it.
Sure, you know what? And I feel bad for Marcus. I mean, we came in, and it was a great group that came in, and there were different things that happened, and I wouldn't say we underachieved, but I think the expectations were a little higher. So, and it's like he was a great quarterback, and I tried everything. We tried everything in the book to get him offers, and he wanted to play. And then I think just at the end, he was just done. Just some kids after a while, they just they're done with it. But he was a great quarterback, and he led the state in passing, and just beyond that, he was a phenomenal kid. And he took the younger guys under his wing, and just was a good teammate. He did everything the right way. He was one that I didn't really have to worry about. And but yeah, so the expectations, to answer your question, we expect to be in the playoffs every year. What we got to do is we got to advance in the playoffs. We've advanced a couple times, but it can't just be quarterfinals or when you get to semifinals.
Tournament time is what it's all about. Coaching in a tournament. Coach, I envy you, man. I mean, I'm excited for you. I truly am excited for you to go up against Heath Ragnar.
Oh yeah.
To challenge your acumen against Heath, man. That's what to me lights it up. I light up because I would look at my opponent across the field and go, I'm as good as you.
Yeah.
I'm as good as you. I'll beat you with my team, and then I'm going to take your team and beat you. I'm as good as you are, especially as a minority coach. Being a Native American, not too many have coached, and I was really fired up, and saying, hey, man, I want to go up against the best. Now, even though the scales might not be too even, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Still, man, just the opportunity to go and say, hey, we're gonna give you everything we can. To go against the new coach at Rio Rancho. What have you heard from him? What do you expect? I
expect great things from him. I read up on him, and I can just tell by looking at some of his stuff online that he's a phenomenal coach. You're just bringing in another championship style coach into the district where there's been great coaches and championship coaches in there, and like you said, I love it. I love seeing going against Coach Kilmer and Ridenauer's guys, and looking at their defense, what's going to happen, looking at what they're doing offensively. You can learn so much from all these guys, and then do what you do. But it's that's the good part. We do get to face the best every year. Our kids know it. We know it. We're going to play the best teams. We might play. There's been years where we've played the number one team throughout the season 4 or 5 times.
Do you think that the playing field is level when an APS school has to play those two schools?
No,
you can speak honestly here.
No, it's a challenge, in a lot of coaches in APS.
Because they have more coaches on staff, right?
Yeah,
it goes.
And that's what makes it even sweeter when you do get an opportunity to compete with those guys and even beat them. We haven't done much of that, but we have won some big games against those guys, and but.
20's coming, Coach.
It's
21's coming. 22's coming, Coach.
Yeah. No, it's difficult because when you have more guys, it's little things. Like from being able to go out of state and coach your guys and play against other teams. That's a big thing. Here's a Texas team we're playing against, or from having the few extra coaches. Well, now you have those guys that are dedicated to tagging all your film and doing that, which takes hours and hours of doing. Whereas in APS school, you're doing that, and that's taken away from time that you might be studying your opponent and game planning. And it's just more challenges, but you got to work with what you got.
For an assistant coach at APS, aren't you almost paying APS to do that instead of the other way around?
You do it out of love.
Right? So
I have a great staff.
But that's a big difference, right? 2, 3, 4 extra coaches.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's a huge difference. Our guys do it because they love it. It is something. The city of Rio Rancho, I've lived there for a long time, and they wanted to build their school a certain way, and they have a certain model they followed, and it's been successful for them. And
remember Coach Adcox, when he was on, he said that's the toughest thing to do is to get a staff together.
Right. Yeah,
the dedication
absolutely.
that it takes.
Absolutely.
And I saw him struggle with it. I saw him struggle with it. It's really, it's not fair to you head coaches. It really isn't. In the coaching world, you get what you pay for, and when you can't pay them, you get what you pay for. And so that's the thing but I'll tell you this, Coach, and we're always about advice and words and this and that. When you're playing these teams, man, you tell your team, we're not putting them on a pedestal.
No.
We're not going to put them on a pedestal where we think we can't reach them. We're going to bring them down to us, and we're going to take it to them, man. There's good things. I can feel it when I was talking to your quarterback. I can feel there's nobody that's going to intimidate him. Mm-hmm. There's nobody that's going to, and so they make stories about, Davey beating Goliath. They make movies about Davey beating Goliath, and I just envy the seat that you're in, man. Those are the things that, get me excited to say, man, okay, if we play this team in the league, well, what we used to do when I was with Hards, we would say, okay, if we were to play this team 10 times, how many times should we beat them? Well, 1. We should beat this team once. Well, okay, what do we got to do to make sure that this is the one time that we get them? Equipment manager, what are you going to do? Support staff, what are you going to do? Special teams, defense, offense, what are we going to do that this is the one time that we are going to, to be able to do those things? And so if I said to you, Coach, we ask every coach, the culture of Cibola football is...
Yeah, you know what? With that, we have our core values, and I can name them for you, and I expect our kids to know them. But I've found through the years that there's some other things that really carry more weight. Our core values are ICCC: integrity, character, class, and courage.
Courage. I like it. ICCC.
You got to have integrity. That's what we're about. That's part of being first class. Character. We all say it. We all preach it. It's what you do when no one's around. And then we say class is what you do when people are around. How are you carrying yourself? How are you at 7-on-7s? How are you in the classroom? Are you the guy in the back of the room on your phone playing around? You constantly talk about those things. And then it takes courage. There's a lot of courage that is involved with doing those things. The easy thing is to go off and do everything that everybody else is doing, like all the other kids. But it takes courage to do the right things.
To your credit, I don't recall over the last years at ProView Networks Cibola kids ever running afoul of rules or getting suspended or just being knuckleheads on the sideline. Now that I'm thinking about it, I really don't ever recall that happening in Cibola.
So ICCC, is this a philosophy that you came up with? You adapted?
Yeah, I used to read a lot of Tony DeMeo stuff.
Okay.
And he's a legend that's kind of a quiet, unknown legend, and he talked about those things. So I kind of modeled after that. And like I said, it's a core value and a set system that I focus on and I talk about with the kids. But beyond that, just it's bits and pieces of stuff. It's the same thing. We talk about pride a lot. I will say every day we meet at the tower after practice, and there's a lot of times I tell them, look across the street there, Party City. Look at Starbucks. Look at Men's Warehouse. That's all our community. Play for our community. Have pride in where you are. As a Delano Knight, I loved my community. And right now where I am, I'm in my community again. And I still take pride in being a Knight. So we talk about that. And another thing is just really in talking with other coaches, what I did this offseason was I kind of, as I had time, I went and talked to other coaches. What are you guys doing? These programs that are doing really well. And one thing, we've always talked about discipline. And yeah, we're disciplined. You think you're more disciplined than you are. But I got some good advice and some good stuff from coaches this offseason. And really, accountability and discipline is the biggest thing. And so we really hit that hard this offseason. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think we had one of the best off seasons we've ever had. We've had some good ones in the weight room, the culture. But this is just different, when the kids start doing it on their own and you see them holding each other accountable and you see kids almost getting a fight because one's correcting another one for fooling around in the weight rooms. I like that. Now I know you guys are buying into what we're selling, and combine that with like Urban Meyer's book Above the Line. We talk about that a lot, and the kids know, they'll call you out on it. They'll call the players out. Is that above the line? Well, that's not above the line. Or no BCD. They'll call each other out on that all the time.
Behavior. Coach calls that red behavior.
All the time they'll do that, though. That's BCD. So whatever you say, and so as a staff, because I told my staff, we're all going to practice. This has to be a culture. This has to be in your own life that you take home to your family. No BCD. You live above the line. You live it. And so you'll see that.
This is our culture. This is the reason why we won multiple championships with the Duke City Gladiators. We live it.
I believe it.
And every day, when I sit up from bed, I should say roll up. That'd be better. You were going to say something smart. Every day when I roll up, from bed, I put my band on and I pull on the blue 3 times. Every day it's a ritual to remind myself I'm blue. Blue, I gotta be blue today. If there's gonna be red situations, I gotta be blue, and so I live my culture. Our players live the culture. We talked about this last week, one of the greatest memories of the night after we won our second championship. Dello and the champagne is flying. Dello Davis looked at me, coach, we won it with culture, and so, which made me feel good. That made me feel good just as much as, hosting a trophy was like he understood, he got it.
Yeah.
We won it with culture, and so, I can't tell you,
Now, I do have a question
how
about...
proud I am of your program and what you guys are doing.
I have a question about the
don't
early
cut me
years.
off anymore.
I have a question about the early years and installing that culture. Because obviously you had a mentor in David Williams, who's as old school as it gets, and your predecessor, Judge, as old school as it gets. Not all of those things probably work anymore with today's athletes, right? So, what was different? How much of a breath of fresh air were you for the program?
What do you mean what they did? Just so I know and our listeners are knowing, what did they do that you feel would be labeled old school that wouldn't work today?
You know how they always say, like, you have to be more relatable to your kids. You can't be as tough as on them anymore. A lot of those old school philosophies, they say don't work anymore. You got to be different. Coach, you have to relate differently to your team now. right? And I know those two guys are as old school as it gets. So, I mean, what were the differences when you went in?
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked at that and I thought about that. Back in the day, what it was, whatever your coach said, you just did it. You set your hair on fire from, you run through a wall, whatever it is, and we do that for Dave, for Coach Williams. I keep calling him Dave. I can't call him Dave. It sounds like disrespect. Coach Williams, he still has that in me. I'll still run through a wall for him. That's just how it was. But we all know that the cultures change, and I've heard people complain about it. These kids, and it's not really these kids. It's really. I think discipline is the key, period. It doesn't matter how much kids have changed or what it is. I follow Brian Kite quite a bit, the guy who worked with Urban Meyer for Above the Line and all that, and he constantly preaches that discipline is a shortcut. There's no other shortcuts in life but being disciplined.
Right.
And so I think no matter who you are, kids want discipline.
I won't coach high school football anymore, but not because of the kids, or not because I've gotten too old, or not because, I won't coach the kids because of the adults. It's the adults that have changed.
Sure, absolutely.
It's the adults that have done that. Go ahead, what do you like?
It was a great meme after the Last Dance. They talked about when Jordan got cut, and the meme was his mom didn't call the AD, didn't call the head coach, didn't go to the school. She told him just to work harder next year.
That's it. I mean,
it's changed so much that the parents have changed. Jack Harbaugh told me a story of very prominent, he's in the NFL right now, one of their prominent players, and that his mother was a pain in the ass, that they had to give her due. They couldn't ignore her. They couldn't push her to the side. They couldn't do anything. They had to heed to everything that she did. And she called up all the time, and they would just go, "Who's taking this one?" and this and that. And that's how it is. Like with you guys. That's another thing that I admire what you young guys are doing nowadays. When you have to deal with that. When you have to deal with that aspect of football, man. Sebastian will tell you, my philosophy is always, get the F away from me. And so that won't work with parents.
No, I can't use that one. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That won't work with parents today, and that's the reason why. So that even makes you guys, that makes the job even harder to the point. I got a phone call.
He says that to the media too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I got a phone call when the mayor called me when I separated with the Gladiators, and the first thing he said was, "You want to be a head coach at APS?" And I said, "Tim, you're supposed to be a friend of mine." Supposed to be a friend of mine. Like, why would I want to do that? Are you kidding me? I see what these guys go through, and no, I don't want any part. I don't want any part of all that. That being said, I've seen some of the best coaches in America are high school guys.
Yeah.
Like, best coaches in America are high school guys, man. I see what you guys do. It's one of the last bastions of society that the profession has a title.
Absolutely.
And there's not too many professions left that have a title. I admire men who are, you're not getting rich, your family sacrificing, to do what you do with your scoped young men, and try your best to get them ready for life. I tell athletes all the time, and this is if you play college football careers is long. And that's if you play college football, it's that long. And the less that these kids, we talked with Aiden last week, and I said, Aiden, the best advice I can give you is, it's going to be over before you know it. And you're going to go like a freshman thinks, man, I got forever, man, I'm just a freshman. They don't realize it's going to, and this is if they played 4 years of college, they're going to go, what happened? What happened? For you to choose to say, we're going to take this short window that we have with these young people, and we're going to mold them, and we're going to try to teach them lessons that they're going to partake in when they're 25, 35, 45. And they're going to give us the ultimate compliment when you don't notice, you're too young to notice. I got players who are now in their 40s, and you know what they say when they see me? Hey, coach. Hey, coach, what's going on, coach? It's not like you and Dave. I can't call him Dave, it's coach. Hey, coach, because there's that reverence of, man, you changed my life. Like, you'll always think about that coach at Highland that made a difference in your life. I remember going to my coaching mentor one time and said to him, like, I can never repay you for what you've done for me. He said, yes, you can. Do it for somebody else. That's what we do in our profession. I tell everybody, his first job, I was a 1A kid. My first responsibility on a varsity level, came out, got a varsity job with my mentor, and the job that he gave me was I was in charge of towels. No, God's honest truth. He gave me the job of towels, and he was testing me to see how is he going to react with these towels. I'm thinking I want to be a coordinator. I want to make decisions during the game. I want to do this. I want to be seen. I want to be, I want to yell and pump. My first year, I was in charge of towels, and so I just got lucky. I got lucky because I believed so much in the lessons that the game taught us. And I made sure rain, snow, I felt like a man, sleet, snow, heat. I was going to have the best stack of towels on the bench, folded perfectly, creased. And if someone needed a towel, man, it was like the game depended on it. Towel! Like someone, I would yell out, towel! Like the game was going to come down to whether this kid was going to be able to towel off or not. You know what I'm saying? I got lucky because I said, you know what? I can bitch and moan and say, hey man, I'm more than this. I'm more than this. And I just said, okay, if he's got me doing towels, it's going to be the best towels in the country, man.
That's right.
They're going to be the best. And so just got fortunate in that way with great, great teachers in our lives. And so what we do is we hand it forward.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We pay it forward in what they do. And so I really look forward to your journey in the next 3 years with Aiden and the rest of your great kids that you have and keep on doing it, man. I was impressed with your team. Like I said, I saw 2 games last year. I was impressed with your team and man, keep climbing.
All right, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take all the advice and apply it, and I think just keep moving forward and like we're talking about, just with the discipline, just the different things, promoting the program, and that's the key. And you mentioned that guys will come back to you later. I don't post on Facebook too often, but I posted something a couple weeks ago about a guy that played for us and went through a really hard time, and he told me some words I told him I don't even remember, but he's now like a staff sergeant or something in the military.
About that.
Did a long thing thanking me, and it just like touched my heart, and I had to share it, because that's why we do it. We want to build better men and send them off and be productive citizens, and do good things. And so coaches affected my life, and that's why I wanted to do it for other people.
Nice. Good. You're welcome to stay. We're going to, this is the part where Sebastian,
Did you guys play CBA this year?
Past year, No, not this year, but they did last year.
Last year we did. This year we don't. But yeah.
So you heard they announced obviously that there'd be school, right?
Well, they're expecting school. It's not official.
At least that has to be a little bit of good news, right?
I don't want to say that because there's just so much to this behind the scenes, and the NFHS also put out some guidelines today, and there's a lot to it. And, I see us going back as football programs in phases. But with the stipulation that doesn't mean you're going to have a season. Obviously, we want to have this season. We're all itching to go. But we gotta be realistic too, that this is something that's unprecedented, and so just being aware of that. Yeah, I'm excited anytime they give us any news that allows us to get back towards being on that field and being with our guys. You miss them, you want to be with them, and just you can't. Virtually it's hard.
I think one of the things that having to go through this, and I don't envy you guys that have to go through this, but you're the guys that are trained to do it. You're the guys that know how to overcome obstacles, know how to overcome sudden change, we call it. Sudden change. You have your PhD in sudden change, and so you guys will do what you need to do, to handle that. We talked a little bit about being unfair and stuff. I was told that there's a picture out there on Instagram of the Cleveland school kids in their weight room, in numbers, and the other schools in APS aren't allowed to do that. What are you doing to try to be? We talk about dealing with sudden change. What are you doing with your players that are dealing with the sudden change?
Yeah, for me, right away, the first thing is we can't lose all the games and all the stuff we've done this off season. So, what I did right away is I got online, started looking for at-home workouts. And so I spent the first 2 weeks sending workouts that I saw from people posting, even good schools in New Mexico. Give them some props, but like Roswell and Clovis, and I was looking at their workouts and kind of tweaking it to what I felt like we needed, and I would post that every day on a Huddle app and as many places as I could put it so the kids would get the information and telling them the importance that you gotta stay in shape, you gotta do this, and we're gonna have a season and we're gonna know when summer comes who hasn't been working out. But then I started doing more research stuff, and we got our kids on a platform app, which I really like the way they do things. They explain things. They put workouts that they know really cater to what our athletes need. So from change of direction, body control, to strength training at home, to range of motion with stretching, yoga, all that kind of stuff. There's a different thing every day. And now, if the kids are doing it, then great. We'll come into the summer fine. But that's just the key. That's my main thing. And then I meet with them often and just go over scheme and stuff like that, and just kind of give them updates. And then we meet once a week and just talk about anything they want to talk about. So,
and I hope that the other coaches, are following the guidelines that are dictated, because one of the things that would drive me crazy during this time and not having our kids would be the lack of 7-on-7. That's where our quarterbacks and the timing and the rhythm and all the different things, our coverage, the separations, the angles, that I would miss. I would hope that there's nobody out there being able to do 7-on-7 to be able to get that advantage, because I think the great equalizer is, well, we can't do 7-on-7, but neither can our opponent. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that that's going on out there, Coach. You don't look and so, because that really, in a situation like this, to me, would be cheating.
There's always going to be guys and programs anywhere you are that are going to try to get the competitive advantage. And, that's my main concern with going back in general. The NMA is going to control what happens in the summer, but I want it to be something to where everybody will have a level playing field, and you can't get that a competitive advantage. We're all in the same situation, and you follow the rules. That's the one thing that stays in my mind the most, and as these new guidelines come out is, I just want everybody to follow the rules, because, when you don't follow the rules also, everybody suffers, because if something happens, then it comes back to all of us.
Right.
One kid, it's just you got to follow the rules. And so I'm right with you on that one. I think it's best that everybody follows the rules and get back sooner and can play.
Right. Coach, I want you to be able to watch the Last Dance, because I want you to partake in smacking Sebastian down a little bit, on the Last Dance. Three colleges out there, California, kind of changing their tune now about what's going on. One of the things, I'm not really in a panic as a father. I'm glad my son's going through it as a junior year. I hate to be like his senior, like some of these seniors that just gave up their senior year and winning. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And so I take a little bit of solace that my son is in his, going into his junior year, and that if something unfortunate happens to where they can't play their junior year, or they play an abbreviated, junior year and stuff like that, he's got his senior year still, which, is still out there and gives us the motivation for him to work as hard as he's working. What do you think, man? What do you think about MLB and what they're thinking, the NBA and what they're thinking, and I
I've gone on the record. I said I don't think NBA is going to finish up this year. I really don't.
Well, LeBron's doing his best to say, and chime in, Coach, when, you know.
If they don't finish, I have a ton of season win-loss bet tickets that I need refunded, so I need this letter to reopen. Because I have all those tickets that I need refunded. I think baseball might, remember what the mayor told us when he was on, he thought that sports like baseball might come back first because there's less contact intensity, not only the contact with each other, but potential contact to the virus. So I think baseball will be okay. They're looking at maybe a 100-game season. It looks like if anything's going to stop baseball, it's going to be the money, not the virus.
Well, because
the owners are going absolutely
they want the players
nonsense.
to take prorated.
This is the first, they're trying to cram a salary cap down their throat, and that hasn't been collectively bargained. They're trying to cut salaries in half. I mean, these owners in Major League Baseball are
I really don't want to see basketball pick up anyway, and here's the only reason why. You're talking about world-class athletes, and they can train all day long, but they can't game train. They can't, when you talk about these athletes in the NBA going up and down the court, the explosion that they're doing, as they're moving up and down the court, man, that's they're out now, 2 months now?
Oh, yeah.
So effectively, it's an off-season.
And they'd have to go straight into the playoffs. Now, the Bundesliga did start this week.
Right.
The premier the premier soccer league in the world, the German soccer league, with Bayern Munich with their cardboard cutouts.
Bayern Munich doesn't realize they're football guys in the office, like the real football guys in the office. So
but none of that
constantly brings up his Bundesliga league that he couldn't even spell.
None of that Premier League England nonsense. Germany is playing again, so that's good.
Hey, I'm just quiet at this time. I just listen. I know nothing about what you're talking about. So.
What do you think? I mean, do you think basketball's going to restart? Football? If you had to...
there's just so much mixed information out there. You got some states saying, hey, we're going to start high school sports again June 1st. We're going to, you got Notre Dame and other people saying we're going to start everything earlier so that we can end the semester sooner because the virus could come back then. And there's just so much mixed information. I don't think anybody really knows.
So much I don't know. Exactly. Right. So much I don't know.
It is just all guess at this point of what everyone's doing, right? It's all just taking stabs.
And so I just think when you're talking about the highest levels, like baseball, they cancel these minor leagues.
Right.
There's going to be no minor league play. As much as I would love to see something this summer, I just don't want to see the athletes get hurt. I don't want it to be made on a monetary basis. Where these owners are going, we're losing
they're
as much money as we...
Can you tell me how that has anything to do with the virus? They're like, well, if we start again, we're going to do 100 games, there'll be no spitting, no chewing, and oh, by the way, everyone has a DH. Like, they just really wanted to slip that in. Like, because as a National League guy, I like the purest form, no DH.
No, there's no doubt. I can't stand the DH. But Yoenis Cespedes would be a great DH for us.
I really wouldn't blame the players. I would not blame the players for striking. If the owners try to cram the salary cap down their throat and half salaries, I bet you there's no season.
Coach, growing up in Albuquerque, you were an NFL fan?
Oh, love it.
Who was your team?
Well, I mentioned it when I came in, and I saw everybody just kind of put their head down and didn't talk back to me. But I like the Cowboys. That's where my family's from. That's where I'm from. And
so you have my sympathy. So we don't call Dallas Cowboy fans around here. We call them long-suffering Cowboy fans. Is what we call them. So are you filled with optimism about your Cowboy team?
Man, it's hard to be a Cowboys fan, but I love them.
Well, that's because you guys are a little bit out of balance. Yeah. Like you win, 2 preseason games, and you're booking your Super Bowl banquet hall
every time.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when Cowboys lose, I mean, how fun is it? Stephen A. Smith brought it out. How fun is it to watch how crushed Cowboy fans get when they go down? This year.
Hey,
what's your opinion on Jerry and the Dak situation? And you were talking about Dalton coming in competing. I never saw it. What do you think now? You hate their head coach, by the way, and you hate their head coach.
He's a fine regular season coach. Mike McCarthy. but I mean, they can go 8-8 with Dalton or with Dak, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to say in general, I think the offseason's been great. But I'm a Cowboys fan again, but this is one that's been a little different, and it's beyond just getting the CD Lamb or any of that. A lot of their other picks were just solid. You know, I went back and I looked at a lot of those guys and how they played in college, and they drafted a little better than they had in the past, and they picked up a couple of other guys that are risks.
I think that CD Lamb was a home run.
Home run.
I'm from Oklahoma, and my wife is an OU alum. My parents are OU alums. My brother's an OU alum. You get the picture.
Awesome.
My sister's an OU alum, and so I'm the only knucklehead that didn't go to OU.
Mike McCarthy was a bunt in the foul territory with 2 strikes.
So, every year we go to the bowl games. My parents don't miss a game. They go to the road and home games. Me and my wife makes me go to the bowl games, and so watching CD play the last 3 years, I said that I've been an OU fan for as long as I can remember. Best receiver I've ever seen out of OU. Best receiver, like CD Lamb.
And they've had some good ones.
And they've had some good ones, some special ones. And so I love that pick. Gallimore, I love him. I love his motor. Might be a little undersized. I'm going to really look forward to seeing how he's going to be able to play at that level. Can he stay healthy at that level? Going against 340-pound offensive linemen every single play, playing inside because he's not going to be able to play outside. Doesn't have the natural abilities to play outside. I would have liked to see them improve their defense a little bit more, because you're talking about, like, you guys Adam cracked on, I'm a Raven guy, but I should say I'm a John Harbaugh guy.
Right.
The day John Harbaugh is no longer the head coach of the Ravens, I'm not rooting for the Ravens anymore. That's where my heart is, right there. And so, the Cowboy fans were cracking on the Giants because Jason Garrett and Mark Colombo are on the offensive staff there. Well, I saw a piece last week on ESPN when they broke down Jason Garrett's offense. And no one realized that last year they had the #1 offense in the NFL.
Yeah.
With the #1 yards, scoring points, everything. When you have the #1 offense in the NFL and the year before, and you're not gaining success, I don't know. I'm going to start looking at the defense, maybe.
Yeah.
It
sounds like a little. No, never mind.
Go ahead.
No, I'll leave that alone.
No, this is a podcast there, brother.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, you know what? Because I don't want. I'm just going to say, you're right. I think there's a high risk on the defensive side of the ball. They got some guys that they're counting on maybe coming back from suspension and things like that. And if all these things pan out, then they solve that problem. And I like the kid from Alabama that they drafted, the cornerback.
Yeah.
They got Byron Jones, who was way overpaid.
I think the philosophy, the culture we talk about, when you brought a Kevin Hardy on your defense, and that was a disaster. A sideline disaster, a meeting disaster, a practice disaster. It was a disaster. And you don't learn nothing from it, and you bring Aldon Smith, who had a worse, history of it.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, to me, it just said, like, Aldon Smith would never have been there if Jerry...
Was he on anyone else's radar?
No.
Maybe Mike McCarthy can bring back Dom Capers. I mean, if you can exhume him from the grave.
And so my thought process with the Cowboys is to get them over the hump, they'd have had to really do something with their defense.
Yeah.
Now you got great linebackers. There's no doubt. Van Der Esch, Sean Lee. Can those guys stay healthy?
Sean Lee is the Yoenis Cespedes of the NFL.
Yeah, Sean Lee, he's a tough one.
And Van Der Esch had a rough year too with the injuries.
He was out quite a few games, and so that is the key. Can those guys stay healthy? And they haven't proven that they can. So it's tough.
So I like it that the Giants have brought in Garrett's offensive system, And I saw a report this weekend that who's going to be schooling Garrett? Tony Romo, is going to be schooling Garrett, getting ready for Garrett's offense. And if you look at the Giants personnel versus the Cowboy personnel, Saquon with Ezekiel,
he's always this optimistic.
Evan Ingram with Witten, the tight ends that they need in their system. I think it's a positive thing that Jason Garrett's offensive system is over with the New York Giants. I mean, I really do. I think Garrett got in trouble with the Cowboys because he tried to do both. You can't be a head coach and, I never dealt with the offense with my team, with the Gladiators, only in meetings. And the only reason being is I wasn't sharp enough to be able to concentrate on the offense series ahead and work the clock at the same time. Because more games are lost than won in football. Clock management, it's amazing how many games are lost by poor clock management. And so...
Especially indoors, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's all about the clock.
Exactly. And so Jason Garrett, without having to worry about clock management, I'm excited about it, man. I mean, I really am.
I just always felt like it was it was typical of Cowboys fans in general, where you're stuck in the 90s. We still talk about that, and I felt like that's how the offense was. Go out, get a good offensive line, which is great, get a good running back, and then pound the rock as if you have Darryl Johnson in front of you, and we just weren't that anymore, and we have a lot of talent.
You don't think Ezekiel should have gotten a few more touches?
Yeah, he definitely should have gotten more touches, but I don't know that we can stay with that same style. And when I see the Patriots and all the stuff they do, and they're throwing the ball around everywhere, and all these other teams, and you see the Chiefs, and
people don't realize when you have a ground and pound, part of the ground and pound is controlling the clock. Okay? But to be able to run that ground and pound, you got to have a defense that can get the other team's offense off the field, and that also helps control the clock, what accentuates that ground and pound offense.
Well, it was a predictable offense.
It's predictable.
It was very predictable.
It was.
But I've also heard that.
But like you said, it was a good
This year was much better, though.
The number one offense I didn't know that.
And that was Kellen Moore.
The number one offense in the league, the Dallas Cowboys were. I was shocked when I saw the statistics and first downs and, moving the chains moves the clock.
Right.
And, so I think that Cowboys miss it. Jerry misses it when he doesn't say, hey, we've got the offense that we need. Like C.D. Lamb, okay, you got C.D. Lamb. All right, no problem. He is gifted. But you got the Cooper kid, too. And you got some other one. And you only have one football. You know what I'm saying? Okay, you brought C.D. Lamb in, where do you improve your offense? You're the number one in the NFL. How does that improve your offense when your offense puts up the most points in the NFL, but your defense gives up the most? And, the goal is to win. To me, it seems like they're out of balance.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, in football in general, a lot of teams, when you can get that culture of the defense to match the culture of the offense and the style, that's when you have your best seasons.
That's when you win championships.
It's your best seasons.
That's when you win championships. And so football-wise, okay, it's going to be another disappointing year for you. But for the Cowboys,
as long as we get the
I would say 8-8. What is McCarthy going to do any different to get them to 9, 10, or 11 wins? I mean, look what they're doing with Dak. Why are you even playing around with it? Commit.
Honestly,
give him what he's worth.
I think they get the same 8 to 10 wins whether Dalton's back there or Prescott. Doesn't matter.
I think Dalton's a good security blanket. Something happens to Dak, you got that. You got him there. He's experienced.
I don't know if you guys have seen Cincinnati Bengal games later. So I see him twice a year. How much exactly?
Steelers.
And so I don't know about all that. Now, are you a baseball fan?
I am, but
baseball's big in Albuquerque.
Not enough to speak on it. I mean, we try to go once a year to a Rockies game or a Diamondbacks game,
nice.
and I keep up somewhat, but nowhere on the level of Sebastian.
I think, Coach, you would look great in orange and blue. If you were wearing, you got your Siebel gear on tonight. If you were wearing that, orange and blue, you know, you would look phenomenal in that, and so they're just two naturally great colors that go together.
Hey, I like the colors, man. I like the Isotopes colors. I like the Rockies. I'm just I'm a fan of baseball. So I don't have a particular team. Maybe the Texas Rangers, but
The ugliest uniforms in baseball are a team called the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, no, gosh, no.
oh man,
Team of the 90s?
It's a racist logo. A racist logo they have of a Native American's head.
That's
You know,
not
it's a
our logo
racist
anymore.
logo,
That's
and
not
it's
our
like
logo.
a tomahawk. You guys go. How many people of color you see go? Exactly.
Before or after
In
we
the
moved to the suburbs?
Exactly. The nice white suburbs out there. You know, and
There's
so.
plenty of people doing the tomahawk chop.
And so obviously, Coach, are you a hockey fan?
ooh, no.
Well, there's no hockey around here.
I'm a sports fan in general. You know, I followed it
What does
sometime or another
Ron
for years.
Williams do away from sport?
He is a toddler.
Well, obviously, you're well-read, because you mentioned some guys that you read about, so.
Well, you know, for us, our spiritual life is very important.
Okay.
We're very active in our church, and so that's a big part of our family. But you know, Coach Chavez kind of touched on it. He mentioned that, you know, I have a toddler. You know, I have a 13, 11-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So that keeps us very busy, and you know, and I guess, like, you know, just looking at it, that's one of the things that I've talked to so many people about this. That's one of the positive things that have come from the whole quarantine is I've gotten to spend so much more time with them and get to know
exactly.
them. And, you know, I really didn't know my boys as much as I thought I did before this.
Coach made his son this year.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
It's the truth.
Feel the same way.
You know, Orion has been with me every step of the way, every part of the 6-year journey that we were with the Gladiators, and every step of the way. He lives here in Albuquerque with me, but yet I didn't know him because
Right.
he worked with the Gladiators, man. Now, we made him go through our indie periods. He went through our indie periods every day and gave him a little bit of a base on stuff like that, but I didn't know him, man. Like, I'm spending like you are, a couple hours a day with him every day, just me and him in the park. You know, and I'm going, how blessed am I? Because I didn't get to do it with his older brother.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get to do it with his older brother
What a blessing.
because of my career and everything is just, it wasn't it. You know, in Orion's lifetime, I've coached in 5 different states in his lifetime, in my youngest's lifetime. And so, what a blessing to be able to, even though he might not think it, he might have a different thought on if it's a blessing to be hanging out with his old man and stuff like that.
Same for me.
You know, you know, but what a blessing. You know, I get in his ass and he's in the park going, okay, who's watching this?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm the same way.
Who's about to put me on Facebook
Yeah,
Live?
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, did anybody hear that? The neighbors hear that?
You know, and so, but it's a blessing to be able to do this with him. I'm gonna cherish every moment of it with him because, you know, I got like 2 years with him left, and then he's on his own.
Yeah.
You know, and so what a blessing to be able to say, hey, let's go to the park.
Yeah.
Let's go to the, you know, let's get our work in, man. Let's get our, you know, and he'll go like, because he knows
Don't give me that.
it's coming.
Come on, man.
He knows it's coming, you know, and, you know, Coach, I kick his ass. Like, I kick his ass, you know, and because he's gotta know how to overcome, he's gotta know how to beat the double team, and that's mental. You know, you gotta know how to beat the double team, because he's gonna see nothing but double teams, you know, and it excites me because, did you see that his teammate, we gotta get him on the show, did you see Sam is ranked 48th
Big Sam.
in the country at defensive ends? 48th in the country.
Wow.
I was telling Orion, what an opportunity. You know how many kids got scholarships from schools looking at other kids? Going, you know, like, because not every school's going to be able to get sent. Committed to bail. But he's an underclassman.
Yeah.
He could change that. He's an underclassman. And so, but they might go, like, Orion, there's going to be an opportunity to go, well, hey, look, let's look inside. Look at the kid next to him. You know, like, there's a great opportunity there.
We saw him on film. We heard he's a sophomore. We saw him. We were looking at another guy on the D line, Sandia, and real big kid. And okay, how are we going to handle him? What's the strategy? What are we going to do there? And then, well, look at the one next to him. You know, the one he kind of had a little bit of hair coming out of his head.
Yeah, that's my son.
He's good, man. We got to figure this out. And so, you can get noticed. You know, when you watch film on somebody else and see somebody else for sure.
There's no doubt. And he's going to walk in here any minute, Coach, and you're going to go, holy shit, he's even bigger than, you know, am I lying, John? Like, he's working hard, he's getting big, awesome. You know, he's on the pro team now, he's doing some of the things that, you know, you have to do, like these players have to do, you know, and so, what a blessing for me. And it fixes my football fix. You know what I'm saying? It fixes my football.
For this guy, too. Yeah, for sure.
Well, him and I talk, and I can tell that he's jonesing so bad, because like we'll just sit there for an hour, we'll talk about everything that we did, like in our drills and stuff that we worked on, and I can tell he's just itching just to be back at it, you know.
Absolutely.
So, and what you
because you're supposed to be with your team now.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, I don't know about New Mexico and Jersey. They called spring ball. This was spring ball. Spring ball was always in May. You know, and so you were always accustomed to be around your players in this and stuff. So tell us about your son there, Coach.
I have a 13-year-old, and he plays baseball, so that's why I like baseball a little bit more. He's played baseball pretty much all his life, and but he's getting interested in football, so we put him in flag recently, and he liked it a lot. And he was always small. You know, you talk about how big your son is. He was always small, and I think he knew that and had this kind of complex about him. But I will tell you, probably in the last 4 months, this guy grew a mustache. You know, he kind of starts getting oily, and he's going to kill me when I get home.
There he goes, right there.
Yeah. And he just grew several inches.
Wow.
And so, like, I watched him with other kids growing up, and they were all much taller than him. And he was always close to his brother, but now he's taller than all those kids, and he's way taller than his younger brother. So that's exciting. And so he's really into baseball, but he says he wants to play for me, so he wants to come. And if I'm still, fortunate enough to be coaching there, he wants to come on and play football. And he's going to do tackle football coming up, but, you know, if there's a season, whatever, or in the future, he wants to do that. And then the other one is a daddy's boy, the 11-year-old. I mean, whatever I do, we call him which is repeat. He's a repeat of me. So, you know, he definitely, if I say, hey, you going to play football, I think you should, he's going to do it. He's played baseball too, but he's really into basketball right now, so he plays with the Blacktop group, and he's really into that, and you kind of let baseball go to the side, but I think he's getting interested in football. And then, of course, we have a toddler that just kind of takes up a lot of our time as well.
Yeah.
So.
And the reason why I ask is, you know, how do you balance God, what was I watching? I watched a movie recently where a father was coaching his kid, and he literally told his kids, he said, I know I'm a father and I'm a coach. And they were getting of an age where he told them the father's got to take the back seat now. The coach has got to take over. And in driving his kids, and his kids went on to get international acclaim, you know, in wrestling. His kids were females. And so he was from India, and literally said to them as he was driving them, and they were saying to him, Daddy, you know, we want to do a little bit more feminine stuff. We want to do it. He just said, listen, I'm your father and I'm your coach, and right now your father's got to take the back seat. And both girls said it was the best decision that, you know, they never, because they went on to get international fame. And, you know, how do you get the balance up? Where do you see your 13 and 11-year-old? Because in a blink of an eye, they're going to be his age or his son's age, and you're going to be talking about, you're going to be thinking, hey man, how much training we got to do? What's the nutrition we got to get? Because this recruiting process, there are 13-year-olds out there now that are getting offered.
Yeah.
At what point do you start saying with the expectations, the balance of, can my son go to that next level? And if his father played college football, of course he can.
Well, I think just overall balancing everything. You know, my wife is a wonderful lady. She's always accepted what I do and the time I spend and put in, and I've not involved them enough in what I do, especially my boys. But it's funny you mentioned that recently. I just kind of told them because I felt like they were still in kid mode, and I'm starting to tell them, you're not kids anymore. You know, you're going to be in high school soon, and
He's gonna have him working the graveyard at the IHOP next to that shit ain't cool anymore. You can't do that.
you know what? I told them that for the first time the other day.
Mr. Car Wash is still looking for people.
What are labor laws now, right?
It was one of those
His
times.
kids just turned off the broadcast. His kids just turned it off. Mom said, let's go, there's...
Yeah, when you mentioned the other day, like sometimes like, hey, are people watching me? I had one of those moments the other day, and I finally just got after him, and I was kind of yelling at him, and what I did, which I don't normally do, is I went through. I've been there. I've worked at IHOP and worked graveyards, and I've done this and that, and I've earned this, and you're gonna give me the respect, and you pay both ways. So it just like I don't ever do that, but it's like something clicked, especially with my older son. It was like I respect him. Felt like all of a sudden he's like, okay, he's dad. It's not just dad, but he is a coach, and I respect what he's saying. You know, because when you try to coach your own kids, man, like, at least for me, I know nothing, but every other coach knows everything. And
I'm laughing because I know the feeling.
but yeah, anyway, so yeah, you know, I just think it's being real with them, and you know, if he does, they end up playing for me, I'm just gonna be real with them. They may or may not be great players. They may, but I'm not gonna push them so much that they hate it, and I'm not gonna also pretend that my kids are college type athletes. You know, if we see that as they develop, I'll definitely cater to that and try to foster as much as I can, but I'm not pushing them in a certain direction. I just want them to be good men.
I think to be careful because they have an open enrollment choice.
My youngest one told me like 2 years ago, he's like, I think I'm going to go play at Cleveland, Dad. I'm like, I told him right now that. I'm like, what? Because he was at Parks and Rec, and one of their coaches is the...
I'll start recruiting him now for Yaffle, so I can coach him.
Yeah, man, definitely. But yeah, like I said, one of their coaches was one of his rec leaders, and he loved him, and he was really good to him, and so...
You know, one of the things that I'm a little older, my kids are a little older, my son played college football, Ryan's brother. You know, one of the things that I just want to tell you is you move through this process and you try to find that balance that you're doing. You know, training like, or I had Ryan flip 100 tires this weekend, you know, in 90-degree weather. He had to flip the tire 100 times and then do 4 push-ups every flip. And then, and it was grinding him, man. I mean, it was grinding him, but he had to finish, you know. And one of the things that he's going to appreciate, and I know this, is because his older brother does. I was rough on his older brother in getting him going. And his older brother, my oldest son is 26 now. Ryan's older brother's 26, my oldest. And he tells his younger brother all the time, listen to Dad. Listen to Dad. I wish I listened to him more. I didn't. That's going to be my biggest regret, he tells his younger brother. You know, I regret not listening to him more than I did because he resented working that hard. You talk about, you know, taking the fun out and doing all those things. And just understand that career's so short. You know, if Orion wants to go to University of, he's got to get a scholarship. If he wants to go to the University of. Because I ain't going to let him take student loans and pay them back until, you know, he's, 80 years old, you know, and, you know, he can go get a college education through being native. He can go get that. And so I'm not going into hock for him to, to get a college education. So he knows that if he wants to get to University of, it's got to be a scholarship. Because that's how I went to school. I wasn't going to go to school, without, what football, brought to me and stuff. And so the lessons that you teach him now, you put your foot up in his butt, and he ain't gonna like it. But I can promise you, Coach, when he's a young man, he's gonna love that you did that with him. He's gonna love that you took the time with him. Don't expect him to understand it right now because he's young. He doesn't understand that. He's gonna get mad at you. He's gonna feel like he's under attack. He's gonna feel like all those things. But it's temporary. And so you know better. You know this is where we guide them. And we teach them, and they have to trust. They have to trust, that what you're doing, and so don't, as a parent, it's so hard, but like I couldn't coach Orion, but not because of him, because of me. Yeah. because, I'm as intense coach as they get. Come to the park over on Osuna during the hours I'm working with Orion, and so, but I know when Orion's 25 years old, he might be saying to his, nephew, listen to Grandpa. He knows what he's doing. I wish I would have listened to him more. Listen to him. So it's another opportunity for us to mold them as they go into their life.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I know that they admire what you do, making a difference in other young men's lives. They're going to love that you make a difference in their lives. That's why he takes it.
Yeah.
He takes it because he knows it's going to make a difference in his life.
Yeah.
Does he like it? Not all the time. But he takes it. And so what happens is he's going to look back when he's 22, 23, 24 and say, wasn't my dad's fault.
Yeah.
If I didn't make it, it wasn't because Dad didn't give the kind of effort. He was always coaching somewhere. He was always doing something. Dad put it in with me.
Yeah.
And so just remember that as you move forward and stuff like that.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I pray about that every night.
Yeah.
That's my prayer every night for these
Yeah.
guys. I'm doing everything I can, and then at the end, it's just ball's in your court.
Remember, just try to think of them when they're 25, 26, and I promise you, they're going to say thank you.
All right.
Thank you for holding me to a higher standard. Thank you. Don't look for that gratification right now.
Yeah.
You're investing. You know what I'm saying? And how many young men have we invested, you and I, in our careers?
A lot of them. Yeah.
We have to invest in ours. And that's the blessing of what COVID-19 has given me, is it's given me the time to invest in Orion. And I'm a little older, Coach, so I don't really care if it hurts my son's feelings or not. So I'm a little older, and you'll see, you put them through a tough workout, you get in their ass when they complete it, you give them the fist pump or the high five, they're going to stick that little chest out a little farther, they're going to, walk with a little strut a little bit faster because they know they overcame, man. Trust yourself.
I appreciate that, yeah. Take the advice, definitely.
Yeah, and so, even Sebastian now, have you noticed? Look at Sebastian, man. Is he not looking marvelous?
Physique.
Tell Coach how much weight you lost.
Continue.
How much weight you got? He's down 20 pounds.
Congratulations.
20 pounds or more.
That's awesome.
No, I hit 20, yeah.
He's down 20 pounds in a month. In a month, he's down 20 pounds. And I'm proud of him, man. You don't see the cut. Remember, Sebastian, you don't see that.
I started that again.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
man.
well, congratulations. Stay with it, man. I mean, you're on the right track.
And so, we've been on for 2 hours. Coach, man, anytime you want, this thing gets lifted. Anytime you want to talk ball, man, I'm here every day. Come on down, we can have a coffee, we talk ball. I'll tell you what my program is all about, the culture. That's what we do as coaches, man. That's what we help each other, because none of us invented anything, And so we were all taught it. And, for the lack of a better term, we're all thieves anyway.
Yeah.
And so, whenever you want, man, as a coach, we love talking ball.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on and letting me kind of tell a little bit about our program and who I am, and just want people to know, hey, Cibola is a great place to be, and it's a great community.
Let them know. And in closing, we ask every coach, did you see Henry T's podcast with Danny?
I saw that he was on.
Did you see the last question that he asked?
Yes.
Yes.
You two steal to make your own questions. You have to steal others. I'm gonna talk to Dan.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
And Danny is my broadcast partner, so for him to go on another podcast before mine,
Let's give him a call. We may have to call him Thursday.
Yeah.
And
a new one.
We always end it with our coaches. 2 words that, for me are very important, this term, very important. What does it mean to you? And the term is coach's wife.
Coach's wife?
Coach's wife.
Oh, man.
What does that term mean to you? Because it's a term unto itself.
Yeah, coach's wife.
Coach's wife.
Coach's wife.
She's a coach's wife.
That term means to me sacrifice. I think of my wife. There was a time when I was first starting off, then I was done. and I've said that a couple times. And she convinced me, she told me this phrase, and this was when I was actually at Albuquerque High, and I think you'd remember, we had a meeting with parents. They were griping and complaining, and we literally had to sit on the gym floor while they all got to just bash us. And that, for me, was like, I can't believe this. I put in a lot of time, I'm trying my best. So I don't even know if this is worth it. And she said, you can't stop coaching. Those kids need you. Well, that's like 20 years ago or 18 years ago, whatever it was, and she has stood by me and been a supporter. I've never heard her complain. She sacrifices me being with the family. She's taking care of the boys. She's the rock in our family. You know, sometimes I just can't believe how good she is to me. So coach's wife to me is sacrifice, love. You know, just love. The time she puts in for our family and the things she does, it takes a lot of love to allow me to do what I do.
How about that? How about that? Coach, thank you. You're always welcome here, man.
Appreciate you. Thanks
so thank you for coming down. Seabass, we got you. What do we got lined up for Thursday? What do we have lined up for Thursday?
We have really a stellar running back from Rio Rancho, Zach V. Hill. I got a chance to coach him in the 7th grade.
Gary would watch on that kid. I put him on the short list for next year. Gary would watch, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. He started his freshman year. He played some slot receiver, got a little bit of carries as a freshman, was the stud running back right next to Isaiah Chavez last year. So we got him booked for the show. He'll be in studio with us on Thursday.
Nice. And
we might have to give Danny Brown a call, because how could you do that to a broadcast colleague? You go on some has-been that hasn't been relevant in 20 years. I love Henry T. I love him too. I love him. He's a friend, but I'm his broadcast colleague, and he goes on another podcast. You know, that's the last time I ever stick up for Danny. I knew Greg was my favorite Brown brother.
And we might have a Bob Brown sighting on Thursday. Not sighting, but you know, on the screen and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can have him. I think I'm ready to do that.
Can't believe Danny.
Cool. And John Chavez, another wonderful job there, buddy. Have you seen the commercial? We have the intro. How about that? That's John Chavez, man. John Chavez is a superstar, man.
I'm just happy you let him shoot your lunch today. That was nice of you.
Yeah, I came here last Friday and I shot video so we could have video. We found great pictures of their menu because we want to thank Phil for letting us have the studio here. So we really want to promote his business.
Sebastian teases and say, this is my shrine. You know, so, you know, thanks everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. We got a great show planned, and we'll go from there.